Romy Gunen, Emily Damari, and Doron Steinbrecher will sleep in their own beds tonight after 471 days in Hamas captivity. They were plucked out of their lives by Palestinian savages on October 7th, 2023, and today, the first day of the second ceasefire, I believe, in this war. They were released, the first three of 33 hostages that are set to be released by Hamas during this 42-day ceasefire. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm joined by Daniel. Daniel, your initial thoughts on this?
I mean, it's great to see them back. It's great to see back any hostages. Anytime we manage to either even get them back by some kind of deal or, more importantly, when we manage to rescue, it's always great to see. I mean, from the start, Netanyahu has said getting back the hostages was one of the goals of the war. And whenever it does happen, it's as always, it's great to see. Now, the the ceasefire only started technical endeavor, or there's some complications. One for basically something that the IDF or Israel itself should have had is the list of the hostages that and sort of the order that they are going to be released by. Now, Hamas just a few weeks ago couldn't even provide the list of hostages who are alive. It couldn't guarantee basically who they will get back. One thing we know is basically, when it comes even to the basically 33 hostages we are supposed to get first, we don't even know who is going to be alive, if all of them are going to be alive, what's going to happen there. Something I think Bonnie mentioned in the chat, there are still, I think, two at least infants that are still hostages. Now, the fact that they were not the first one released is also what's going on. Why is this the first people who are going to be released? Now, the way it's supposed to work, women, children, and elderly are supposed to be released first before uh, men and IDF soldiers. Uh, so this is, in a sense, it's aligned with that. Somewhat we have women, but yeah, there are still both the elderly and children, actual children in Hamas captivity. And the big question is, does Hamas actually have? Does Hamas know where they are? That's what's already pretty scary. But in the upcoming days, we'll see hopefully more hostages being released. So at least for that, it's a good start. But yeah, we'll have to see how it continues. Not to mention, many things can change tomorrow. Trump is being inaugurated, and we'll see if anything big changes because of that. Uh, Considering he supports the deal, I expect not much, but we'll see. I'll just mention just for information, it looks like Ben Gvir has did officially leave the government, but he is still providing confidence to the government, meaning he is still sort of supporting it without actually being in the government. So I have no idea what that was about. It's almost a meaningless gesture.
Well, it's more than meaningless. It gives kind of the other side of the argument here more power because Ben Gvir will not topple the government, but he won't be a part of it. So whatever he's bragged about preventing previous deals. If that's true, he certainly won't be there to prevent the second stage of this deal in 42 days. But yeah, Bonnie says it's not a good sign that the Bibas boys and mom are not first. Yeah, Kfir and Ariel Bibas were babies. I think 6 months and 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken, when they were taken. Uh, and yeah, this deal is for, at this stage, the release of 33 of the 97 hostages, so 30 more out of the 94 left, and the Bibas children are within that list, but there's no guarantee on who is alive and who is dead. fully expected that the first three released would be alive. And in terms of, Hamas violating the agreement because they were supposed to release the names of who's going to get released yesterday, and they waited until today. And then Israel bombed a little and postponed by a couple hours the start of the ceasefire. That's nothing new. The only thing that would be surprising here is if Hamas didn't do that, because they always do that. There was a ceasefire in this war, which included the release of hostages, and they delayed that. And we'll talk maybe later today or on some other show about the scenes in Israel and the scenes in Gaza today, because in Gaza, if you see the way the hostages are brought through, and thousands are out with their phones, looking pretty healthy for people who just went through a genocide and starvation campaign, and celebrating this moment, which is a great victory for them. But of course, in Israel, people are celebrating because they are on the side of life, because, yeah, again, three young women were taken out of, we're going to talk a bit more about specifically these three, but were taken out of their just normal lives that, despite what you hear from the anti-Israel crowd, are very, very similar to the lives that us in the West, in other countries that are semi-free, including the people who protest against Israel, the lives we're used to live, not expecting all of a sudden armed savages taking us, throwing us in tunnels, or with families of savages that'll hold us and actually starve us. By the way, we don't know about these three, but we know the previous hostages were saying how they were taking turns stealing pitas just so that they could eat. Uh, yeah. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Kenny asks if those are all the hostages. No, it's the 33 are going to be released three at a time, more or less. I think in one case it'll be four, once every week for the next 42 days. Today, Israel is also releasing 90 terrorists, and of course, many more terrorists will be released as part of this deal. Thank you, Kenny, for the super chat. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, so uh, yeah, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts also. Uh, yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? Really, I mean, this is again great to see. I mean, I'll just mention. I also have some of the things from the IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari. He said this is a very emotional moment. Alongside the pain, we need to allow families to reunite with their loved ones. Our hearts are with the hostages still held in inhumane conditions in Gaza, and that is truly something important. People call out. About the speak out about international law, how Israel is breaking international law. Yeah, the fact is, when it comes to sort of treatment of and I don't even want to say hostages, because Israel has no hostages. Israel has prisoners. The people who were caught on October 7th were terrorists who either have committed horrible acts or failed at committing horrible acts. And the fact is that throughout, since October 7th, or since when the hostages were taken from Israel and being kept in Gaza, not a single time they were allowed to meet any sort of Red Cross or any sort of international organization to treat them. While that was not true on the opposite side. Israel had allowed, even for these terrorists, even the people who, if they were killed on October 7, it would be absolutely justified. Even if they were killed after October 7, I think in my mind, it would be absolutely justified. They had not a single Palestinian had any reason to be there on October 7th. The only way they got there is they either directly broke in or they followed the people who broke in. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but when I see a hole in the fence, I don't go through it and just start killing people or start kidnapping people or start doing whatever I want, because this is just the Jews. And yeah, that's what's truly terrible about I don't even want to call it double standard because it's almost not a double standard. They view it as the Jews cannot do right. They cannot do and Palestinians cannot do any evil. So when you view it like that, it's technically it's not a double standard. You just apply the beliefs you've always had, and that's what's I'm truly terrible about this whole situation.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan, for the super chat. Thank you, Harry, for the super chat. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. I want to read a little bit. This is in Hebrew, so I'm gonna kind of translate as I go along, but a little bit about the three women who were released today. And again, this is a happy occasion and should be a happy occasion. And of course, I can be accused of context dropping here because it's a terrible deal without which this specific happy occasion at this point would not be happening. But again, let's remember what we're talking about. We're talking about uh, human beings living their life and basically their lives being uh, you know uh, and not ended in a sense temporarily. They weren't they were technically alive, but weren't living in any way that counts. And not to mention the lives of their families when you have a loved one, not just in captivity, but in captivity by the worst savages humanity has to offer. And just so yeah, seeing them released is somebody here said that it's that they just watched it and they're very emotional. Yeah, I spent the last few hours watching this, and I don't know how anybody can not be emotional. So I want to read a little bit. So Romy Gonen was taken from the party, the Nova Music Festival. She was um, from 6:30 in the morning Israel time. She was talking to her mom on the phone. Those of you who remember what that day was like, it was basically many, many hours of people trying to run away. Some of them, were talking. Some of them were interviewed on television while this was happening. And I remember watching that, and I don't know how many of those survived, but people were trying to escape to wherever they could, but they were unarmed, and the IDF was nowhere to be found. So she was talking to her mom from 6:30, and at 10:15, she told her that she was shot. Then her mom heard terrorists shouting in Arabic, and the call was ended. Romy turned 24 in captivity last August. Um, Emily Damari was the only hostage who was also a British citizen. She had dual citizenship. She was taken from her home in Kfar Aza, I believe, and she was in the homes in Israel usually have a safe room that's supposed to be safe from rockets, but not necessarily from terrorists on foot. She was in the safe room. She uh, was, even sent a selfie from the safe room. Hamas were shooting at the safe room, and eventually managed to take her into Gaza. Doron Steinbrecher was taken from her home, also after many hours of talking to family, telling them that there are terrorists around, and of course the terrorists went home by home, so people knew that there were terrorists in the kibbutz or in the village, and there was nothing they could do. They couldn't try to escape because the terrorists would kill them, and they couldn't defend themselves because they were unarmed. Um, yeah, well, there is a lot more, and of course there are more hostages who we of course hope will be home as soon as possible, and hopefully without handing Hamas the victory.
Yeah, I mean, what's truly terrible is that in the end, no one. no one in the West really cares much about these hostages, or I mean, what it really takes. Um, yeah, what it really takes to like realize what's really going on. They don't realize the truly evil of Hamas and of the Palestinian people. I mean, even with the hostages themselves, people might not remember, but or might, but quickly after October 7, when the hostage posters started being hanged around the world pretty much to bring the awareness, people were tearing them down. Now, again, this is putting the posters of the hostages. That's not even a political statement. It's not even you are saying that Israel should go in and kill every single Palestinian. It's not even making that bit of a like a political statement. It's just saying, hey, Hamas took hostages, like actual people, uh, civilians, and they just took them back to their own place, back to their own area they govern, to 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 basically, yeah, I mean, to keep them for 471 days. I mean, again, we've been covering this since October 7th. We've decided to really focus on this issue because it's such a big deal, and I'm I'm struggling to remember sort of the ARCUK before October 7th. I cannot imagine being a hostage for this many days, for this amount of time, and the fact that at the end of this, or sort of at the when we get to the ceasefire, the fact that we got here by pressuring Israel to back down, by pressuring Israel to take the deal, not by pressuring Hamas, by demanding of Hamas something. I mean, people can go back and watch the video we did on Amnesty International when they called out how we need to redefine genocide for what Israel is doing, and then at the complete bottom, at the end, they call for release of civilian hostages, not even of all hostages. Um, so again, the fact that this whole conflict, this whole, even when it comes to conducting the deal, sort of negotiations, the fact that Israel is viewed as unreasonable one because it wants security guarantees, because it wants more of its hostages back, because it wants to not release terrorists back into their country, so they can continue terrorizing both their population and the populations around them, is truly, that's why for the most part, I'm at the loss of words. Like, this is not only uh like really disappointing. This is truly like evil corruption in the West, where we've forfeited, or we've given up on like any sort of protections of Western values, any sort of real combating of evil, any sort of real combating of terrorism. And yeah, I mean, you could just go back and see the reactions to this deal. It was not, now it's over. Now, finally, this is over. Finally, the killing will stop, with no context of what's really happening. What was the goal? Why is this war happening? Uh,
Yeah, although that's not across the board the reaction, and it's good that you remind people that in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, now when we hear the anti-Israel crowd, they talk about genocide, they talk about starvation, they talk about women and children dying in Gaza. Um, there were people on October 7th and on October 8th out in the streets celebrating. There were Black Lives Matter. Chicago, showed their support for the paragliders who came in for the sole purpose of slaughtering as many Jews as possible. And and people, like you said, were tearing down posters and stickers with pictures of hostages, including baby hostages. We've covered that on this channel. There are videos. The Campaign Against Anti-Semitism and their U.S. counterpart, with a similar name, often showed these videos. And and of course we saw celebrations in Gaza on October 7th. Now, when this deal was reached, there were celebrations in Gaza as well. if you look at the pictures and the videos today, and there are plenty of them because everybody in Gaza seems to have, other than more than enough food, also a fully functioning, fully charged, and connected to the internet mobile phone. You can see them out celebrating this moment where they literally got away with mass murder. And uh, there was this protester yesterday in London in the regular Saturday pro-Hamas rally, who I saw being interviewed, and who said that he doesn't want the Palestinians to stop. He was I could see that he was white, but his face was covered with a PLO Palestinian scarf, and he spoke in a very English accent and said, "What I want is for Hamas to keep fighting." And for Israel to be destroyed. Now, who this particular person is, what he was doing in previous protests, was he talking about genocide as if it's a bad thing where now he talks about it as if it is the goal? I don't know, but I can assume it is. And make no mistake about it, there is nobody on that side who is not on the side of actual genocide, as in killing all the Jews. So this is why anybody who is happy from the pro-Hamas side about this hostage deal, it's not that they're thinking, okay, now the killing will stop. And also, yeah, we don't want innocent Israelis. No, they want innocent Israelis suffering in tunnels and dying. Um, but they understand that maybe the release of these 33 in the grand scheme of things is a small price to pay because, like the release of Gilad Shalit, it was a small price to pay for getting October 7th done and getting whatever it is that they have planned next done.
Yeah, I mean the fact that when you look into this deal, when you look at what is actually going to happen, the fact that Hamas will most likely not go away if this deal happens as it does. Now, within the Israeli cabinet, I think Smotrich was given some guarantees that this war will continue until Hamas is destroyed. So we'll have to see when there's supposed to be more negotiations, I believe, in a couple of weeks about how the deal is going to continue. Now, depending on how that goes, we might see back resuming and fighting, while we might, I guess, a couple of weeks, we might get few dozen hostages back, and then possible fighting will continue, although they'll try to, uh, let's say, with the pressure from the international community and probably maybe even Donald Trump's presidency, push back for Israel to basically go more towards the deal, which might make the deal even worse for Israel if Israel is the only one getting any sort of pushback, if Israel is the only one getting any sort of yeah, basically pressure on it. Because again, reminder, this deal looks incredibly worse than the deal that was there last time, which was mainly the goal of Israel after Israel put an enormous amount of pressure on Hamas and was able to secure the deal by itself. Now, this deal is completely Biden's uh, goal, or sort of completely Biden's sort of credit since May or whenever the sort of first time there was basically, he came up with this deal. Um, so again, the fact that Hamas might continue existing through this, the fact that the fact that Palestinians know they can commit October 7th, and the people who did it will be allowed to continue. Maybe not specific individuals. We did get a bunch of high-ranking members, but the fact that the sort of culture of Palestinianism that is about killing Jews, is about simply sustaining this like Islamic regime, is able to continue. So they'll learn nothing, or in the sense they won't get any punishment. They get rewarded. So yeah, might as well do it again. Why wouldn't you? You got everything you wanted.
Yeah, and when you talk about specific individuals, we've celebrated the successful eliminations of some of these specific individuals over the past year. But it's there are many in Hamas's leadership who are alive and well, and there are also many who have been captured, and those who have been captured know they'll get released. So people who committed terrorist atrocities not on October 7th, but a couple of years ago or a bit more years ago, are being released in this deal. So yeah, that's usually how it works. So of course, um, Hamas has won from this deal. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Lou says that Biden said phase two means Hamas is not in control of Gaza and phase two negotiations begin at day 16. Um, yeah, I was watching Israeli Channel 14 today. I tried watching Channel 11, and then I remembered that I hadn't eaten today, and I would not to lose my appetite and have not do a show on an empty stomach. So I changed to Channel 14, where they're optimistic that Israel will continue fighting after this ceasefire is over, like they did after the previous ceasefire. And part of it is that for phase two, one of the supposed red lines is Hamas completely disarming, something that Hamas, of course, will not agree to unless they can agree to it and not actually do it, which is, of course, always a possibility. And violations on their part are always ignored. So they might be able to agree to it, not do it, and get away with not doing it. So we'll see. But yeah, Smotrich says he will quit if they don't go back to fighting after phase two, and uh, it's gonna be. It's going to be very interesting. Lou also says they expect it to break down, around that time after some hostages are released. Maybe I don't know. Again, I'd love to see all the hostages back. I'd love to see zero terrorists released, and I'd love to see many, many terrorists who are still alive and well, and we saw them on TV today killed. And that's what needs to be done by Israel, and we're gonna find out whether or not that happens. Parting thoughts, Daniel?
Not much. I think the next few days and weeks are going to be definitely something to watch out for. Make sure to watch us so you can get a daily dose of rationality on the stuff that's going to happen, as well as tomorrow Trump is being inaugurated. And as I've already said, I'm already tired. So maybe you can get, if you are also, maybe you can get a bit more sensibility coming out of us rather than just listening to whatever he says. So yeah, I'm well, the next few weeks are gonna be interesting. I don't know if I'm like excited or scared or what, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
and
something.
again, we are not party political animals. We want certain things to happen. We want the West to be free, to defend itself. So we will cover what happens in the coming years, and we will cover it according to our principles, our standards, and to the extent that people who we object to do good, we will say that. I'm talking about Trump. I'm not talking about terrorists who the uh only good when it comes to them is them being dead. um and yeah, we will of course cover the inauguration tomorrow unless there is some news story that is bigger than that. Well, I know I don't want to assume anything, but yeah. So thanks Daniel, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you back here on the Daily Objective and in the reality show tomorrow.